Welcome, fellow travelers. My name is Chaffee, and I'm joining Chibi and Vertek at the Golden Feather. Come on in, grab a seat, and let's share tales of adventure.
Muted.
Do we have sound now?
Grunting noises.
I think we have sound now. Angry grunt noises. Angry tavern noises. Insert.
Angry tavern noises.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I tell you what, if it's not one issue, it's another. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, we at least have Chibi's audio there. Okay, so la la la, we'll start again. Welcome to the Golden Feather Tavern, where your hosts, Chibi and Vertek, discuss Ashes of Creation and important topics spoken about within the Ashes community. Every week, we invite you, the viewers, and a special guest to pull up a chair, grab a pint, and join the conversation with us. Today is the 22nd of February 2025, and we're on episode 230, the State of the Ashes Address 2025. And the traveling bard joining us today is not joining us today. We are just us. You, the viewer, are our guest. Yes. We did keep in the Chaffee intro, though, from last week, just because, you know, it's a nice chill one. It's calm. He's got a beautiful, lovely, lustrous voice, so why not keep it there? But Chibi.
Sorry, I'm fussing with myself. I'm like moving in and out.
Yes, you very much are. You very much are. And Chibi, how are you doing today? And what do we have on tap?
Doing pretty good. It's been a week for sure. There's a lot that Vertek and I have just been up to in general, behind the scenes and overall. So I'm excited to explain more coming up soon once things are a little bit more finalized, but right now that's all I can really leave you with. But today we're going to kind of talk about the overall view or current state of Ashes of Creation, aka the State of the Ashes Address. We try to do one of these once per year around this time, sometimes in February or March, depends. But with our guest not being able to join us tonight, we figured now would be a great time to go ahead and pop that right in there because I've got already a full list of people for March. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about some variety of things such as the different classes and systems and gameplay items and what to expect of Ashes of Creation in 2025 and kind of looking back at Ashes for 2024 and just where the community is sitting currently. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below for those of you on YouTube or in chat if you're with us live, because this is an interactive live stream, not just a pre-recorded item. So we love to hear your thoughts in the chat while we talk.
Indeed.
But is there anything that you really want to start off with here?
Oh man. Well, first off, to start off with the disclaimer, some of you may or may not have heard some of this, so there's maybe a person or two that might have said it once or twice. But this is everything we say and everything we're looking at is keeping in mind that this is an alpha. This is a work in progress. Lots of balance passes have not been done. They're working more on core features and getting them introduced and testing them and getting them correctly functional. Not worried so much about the actual balance and whatnot of them at this moment. So this is just kind of ain't playing today. No, not today. Not this time around.
Yeah, our Saturday podcasts are not really gameplay podcasts. They're conversational podcasts.
Yeah, we get discussions happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anything that we do say is keeping in mind that things are going to change. It's not that they might, it's that they're going to. Maybe not literally everything, but you know, just want to get ahead of that. So these are just opinions and feedback from people who are playing right now, including us. We're tossing our opinions in there and bringing up some from other people.
Yep, absolutely. And if you're not familiar with our Saturday podcast, we typically talk about what the community is talking about while also highlighting some stuff from the community, such as videos or art, etc. So typically we look through YouTube and Reddit to see what the community is discussing, and we add our own thoughts to it. And often we have a guest with us to also add their thoughts into it while you meet them. So, alrighty. Well, I guess with that in mind, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we?
Okay. What is the elephant?
Ashes announced that their next live stream is going to be the 28th at 11 a.m. Pacific. And on their Twitter, somebody named Fireplay says Rogue announcement. And Ashes says the focus of this upcoming stream will not be the Rogue archetype. So let's just get that out of the way. And I wanted to also highlight with that the cadence of the updates. I had posted this out just as a reminder to everybody what Ashes of Creation's update cadence is going to look like. And we have hot fixes as necessary, which you see throughout the weekend test that we are currently going through. And then about every 3 weeks, there's minor version releases, balancing changes, major bug updates and fixes. And then every 6 weeks are when we see the major version deploys with like new features and content. We just saw that recently with the desert biome being kind of updated. So
I'm just saying, as a tank main, I can't wait until the release that includes the shield that is in that image on the post.
yes,
I would like that shield, please, and thank you.
I like that shield a lot. It's really pretty. That being said, how are you guys feeling about Rogue being not currently pushed out? For me, I kind of expected that, but that's also because I have access to the PTR, as does Vertec. I don't think Rogue is at a position where it's ready to be implemented into the production. I think that there's a lot of balancing that needs to go into it. The TTK with Rogue is pretty, low? Is that what you say? Low? Shields are a myth. I've never seen one.
Yeah, time to kill is really low right now.
Yeah, so we were able to obliterate somebody within like seconds, unless they were like pretty evenly matched in terms of skill. I know that I died within a couple of seconds of reviving and entering into a fight. So that being said, I don't think that perfectly balancing everybody is a goal right now, but I think that a lot of the devs are focused on not only Sand Squall Desert being fleshed out a little bit more, but also there's some other stuff like Rogue and Sieges being tested and worked on at the moment. So while I'm a little sad that we haven't seen it yet, because I initially thought maybe we would see it in January or February, it absolutely makes sense to me.
But Peoria Jack, by the way, yeah, shields are a myth, never seen one. Yep. Although now most people can see their shields, but mine acts like a skateboard on the bottom of my feet.
Yes.
No idea why, but I find it funny.
I like how Sourcap says Rogue would be nice, but I ain't worried about it. I want Sieges and Relics. Yes. And that reminds me, like, there's a lot more that Ashes still needs to work through before we're even done with Phase 3. And I have to remind people sometimes that not every update is going to be substantial. Not every update is going to introduce something big and new and interesting. Some of them are just going to be, hey, we fixed a couple of bugs this week, like the end. I can say that they did do a tech test yesterday before they brought back up the servers with our characters on it. So I couldn't even heal through 5 people.
Heal through 5 people.
Very funny. I like that. But Vertec, what are your thoughts on the next live stream? We don't know what it is exactly, but it's not Rogue. We know what it isn't.
Yeah, we know what it isn't. You know, I'm having a hard time predicting their topics and what they go into anymore these days, because there's so much stuff that's been added and so many improvements that they say they're making to different aspects, different systems, and so many more things to yet come out that I'm having a hard time predicting here lately. If they're going to be going over like, hey, we fixed this and we went over that and we made improvements to this, and here's now this is how this is going to function, here's how this is going to function, the change we're going to make, or if it's actually talking more in depth about new features coming out. Like I'd love for them to go more into like the guild systems, that they're going to be bringing
Yeah,
up and bringing online.
absolutely.
And I think that'd be a decent topic to go through, and just looking at the, any changes they've seen in the system with people interacting with it after they reduce the experience required for the next level, and maybe even some random stats on how many guilds have actually taken advantage of that feature and gotten leveled up at all.
Yeah. And I will say, currently both Rogue and Sieging are under testing, like focus testing with the PTR. Vertec, you and I were able to, I think did you get a chance to do Sieging this last Tuesday?
Yeah.
I thought so. So yeah, you
Just
and I were able
barely.
to go into testing the sieges and everything, and they've made progress with that. I did a tavern talk on Tuesday. Vertec had to go back to work because he had to fly out the next day for more adventuring with work. And so I kind of went over my whole thoughts on that, and then we were talking about in that chat about like sieges and things like siege vehicles and how that's going to adjust everything, because I forgot that there's supposed to be siege vehicles. Like, I forgot all about the fact that you're going to have your trebuchets, but also your ballistas. And that's going to affect how sieging feels as well. And I'm pretty sure the trebuchet's base is a caravan. So once they fix some of these caravan issues, I think they'll be ready to apply the caravan base to something like a trebuchet or a ship, perhaps.
I'm still really curious, like when the time comes that those are all introduced, just to see how like a metropolis sieging a stage 4 node elsewhere with smaller walls and everything, but they have, the resources of a metropolis and siege engines that a metropolis can create.
Yeah.
Bringing those kind of arms to bear, just to, man, because without getting too deep into it, because we're just kind of covering broad strokes right now, but without getting too deep into it, man, that, could you imagine trying to for one metropolis to keep another metropolis under control by just taking out all their level 5s and 4s and whatnot, just sequentially?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But going back to the TTK, is there anything that you wanted to touch on that? Because TTK is going to definitely affect these larger scale. They are, after all, balanced around rock, paper, scissors, and or group fighting. So that's going to be shining, if you will, in node wars and sieges and things like that. But what are your thoughts currently on TTK?
Yeah, I think TTK is in a really weird spot right now. And I say weird because the statements that Intrepid has made before on TTK was that between depending on which interview you go with, and circumstances and all, it's between like 10 and 30 seconds for a time to kill is their goal, right? But that should in theory also be including the rock, paper, scissors. Like if you are the rock and someone else is the scissor, they're killing you, it should take that full 30, even maybe longer if they're the weaker class to you. But if they're the stronger one, it should take that 10 seconds. That should be the minimum. It's like 10 seconds to slay you as the advantageous class going against your weaker class. But currently, the most extreme example, at least the most extreme example I can think of, is literally with a mage versus a tank. And it's absolutely bananas that they can nuke down a tank in 3-4 seconds. But I think a lot of that has to do with how the crafting system and artisan system is working, because you can go through, and someone else did the math on it. I don't have it right on hand. I'll try to find it by the time this is all done. Maybe it's that crafting needs to be fixed ASAP. It was one of those.
Yeah.
Where someone did the math on it, and it was like you're supposed to have a 0.001% chance of getting a legendary material when you're gathering, but it's actually guaranteed if you find the node. And then it's multiple times per day guaranteed to get multiple drops of that gatherable at legendary.
Like legendary doesn't feel very legendary at the moment. Yeah,
and so we're getting legendary crafted gear on, this is a random made up number, so take it with a grain of salt, treat it as you will, but like 40% of the population, it seems, has at least 1 or 2 pieces of legendary crafted gear. That's what it feels like. So that's just well blown out of proportion. Plus the enchanting on top of that just equals some insane stat bumps that people really aren't going to have if the gathering isn't quite as busted as it is right now.
Right.
So it's all part of a larger conversation, but just right now it doesn't feel good, the TTK in general. And on a personal note, again, this is just me saying this, but I'm probably going to be limiting my tank play and starting to work on a bard and a cleric. Because it seems like those are far more impactful in PvP, like far more impactful in PvP than a tank.
Yeah, and fingers crossed that they do kind of a like, how do you feel about the current state of each class conversation, where maybe they'll cycle through, like, give us your thoughts on the current state of tanks, clerics, etc., whatever you're primarily playing. How does it feel? Does it feel good? Does it not feel good? Because I feel like balancing a class takes in a few components. In my opinion, it's, how does it feel when you're doing PvE content, when you're fighting a boss or fighting mobs, etc., and in raiding, etc., and like just kind of adjusting those. How does it feel when you're going up against a couple of mobs? How does it feel like when you're raiding as a firebrand, for example? And how does it feel when you're in PvP? How does it feel when you're in PvP with a whole other group of people, like Node Wars? And how does it feel when you're in PvP with 1 to 2 other people? And I think all of those have different thoughts and opinions on what causes it to balance. And then you kind of take the average of them, is how my mind works, on what the best balance is for that class, making sure that you're incorporating PvE balancing and PvP balancing for both.
Yep. And that's the really tricky part. And I know one solution that has been brought up before is just literally decreasing the amount of damage you output in PvP.
Yeah.
Or add, I guess the best way to put it is every player has a resistance to player produced damage or player created damage.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm
also curious to see what amount of that is like the type of gear you're wearing. For example, I'm wearing light. If you're coming at me with non-magic, I'm probably going to die faster. Compared to if you're coming at me with magic damage, and vice versa. If you're wearing heavy and I'm doing primarily magic damage, you've got almost no magic mitigation. I could totally see a world where everybody's running around in leather. Or like medium armor sets, or a mixture, to try and add a little bit of both. Yeah,
I think the optimal that's been kind of theory crafted out is going to be a mix of heavy and light to get that good balance. Because when you go medium, I think it reduces your overall mitigations, even though it has a balanced magic and physical. It reduces your overall. Whereas if you do some heavy and some light, you get the extreme benefits while also mixing in a little bit of both.
That's very fair. Another kind of similar point is currently a lot of people are aware that there is a limit to hunting in Ashes of Creation. I don't know if this is necessarily a problem or if just the system's not fully fleshed out yet, which is causing the problem, if that makes any sense. So what we're seeing, at least on Lineth, is that if anybody wants really good leather gear, you kind of have to wait for these node buffs to go up to even have a chance to get a heroic set of like medium gear. And that is affecting a lot of people that primarily use medium armor, such as possibly rogues coming up. And I think this also adds into the issue of, too many people are able to reliably get higher quality materials, and thus you have a lot of people running around in legendary gear, whereas maybe not as many people should be running around in legendary gear, because we also have
just a random comment while it's on the topic of hunting.
Yeah.
How ironic would it be if the hunting node spawns, like the huntable creatures that spawn, are actually using an appropriate spawning mechanic to produce very, very, very incredibly rare legendary drops. And it's actually working properly, and every other gatherable system is the one that's broken. What if hunting is the only one that's working as it should?
Yeah, that's a good point. And is that like hunting potentially is the only one that's actually working as it should be, and the others are broken and spawning more often than they should be. Because if I recall correctly, hunting is not static like the other gatherables are. Because I was able to sit there and hunt a collection of wolves, and one wolf that gave me a rare, when that respawned, it would maybe give me common the next time. Whereas currently in a lot of the other systems, if you chop down a specific tree, if you pick a specific flower, it would respawn at that same rarity.
Yeah, for what is it, 24 hours until the next reset? And then when the reset happens,
something
it would
like
change?
that. I think there's a lot of theories on how exactly that works. There's some theories where it's like this is standard for the next 24 hours. And then there's other theories where there's like a mid refresh halfway through that 24 hours where it might just shuffle where that went. I don't know. It's very, very interesting to hear people's thoughts on how it's possibly working behind the scenes.
And hello and welcome in, by the way, there, Kenko and Chaffee. We kept your intro for today, even though you're not on joining us today, Chaffee. Just so you know, people heard your luscious voice on the intro.
Yes. And a lot of people, let's just kind of also touch base on something else that's big going on in the community. I may not be very vocal in people's comment sections, but I do see a lot of the videos that go up. And I've seen at least 3 separate videos from 3 separate people on the fact that the community is kind of burning out. And I know that that's the case for at least myself, who's been going hardcore since the beginning of phase 2. And it's one of those, I pushed really hard to get to a specific point, but now I'm finding that with the lull of any real updates, and I'm not trying to discount any sort of updates that Intrepid is making, there's your bigger updates and then there's your more minor updates. And the way I look at it is, with the current minor updates that are happening, I don't mind popping in and still helping people with stuff like making them items or what have you. But I think I'm just going to take this lull in content and refocus my attention to like focus on TGF and the type of quality that we're making and any updates that we want to make to our content, and just kind of find a better balance between the two. Because I'm going to be honest, we both kind of no-lifed Ashes for like 2 weeks at minimum, and I've been going pretty heavy ever since, whereas Vertec may not have had as much ability to do so. And so we're noticing people are either burning out, which is fine. Steven has mentioned, for those of you that maybe hadn't caught it, when he had his interview with Tangents of Creation, he mentioned that currently his focus is not sustaining the testing base, the tester base. Currently, it's just making sure that people are testing at all, and that the bugs are getting put in, and that they're able to progress forward with that.
Yeah, and that's a very valid statement, to be honest. They're just trying to get this stuff out there and make sure it's in players' hands to test. And as long as someone's testing it, they're gonna find at least a good number of bugs. And during the big updates that draw a lot of people back in, they're going to get more testing after they fix the main core things that are super easy to notice, and probably breaks more of the system than the small stuff that'll be, rooted out by a mass number of players.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It makes sense.
Some of the examples that I heard are things like, I already put in my feedback for this particular bug at least 3 or 4 times, and it doesn't feel like it's getting, addressed, which that's fine. It may not be in Intrepid's purpose to address that behavior, but putting in that feedback shows them how many people are thinking that that might be a problem. And it could be something that they're working on, but it's not priority working on. And then the other thing is that, the current end game loop is level up as not as quickly as you possibly can necessarily, but level up to 25 and then primarily either run caravans and do PvP that way, Node Wars, do PvP that way, Guild Wars, do PvP that way, or dungeons and raids and do PvE that way. And I think that a lot of people, especially us as MMO players, we have had conversations previous to Alpha 2 about, you know, the MMO player burns through content so much faster than developers can typically create it. And I think that with testing, it's important to recognize when you're getting burnout and not feel just because you are getting burnout doesn't mean that the testing is not working properly. I want to put that opinion out there because I may be getting burnout, but that's no fault to Ashes. That's just me not regulating my time in the game to ensure that I'm not getting burnt out.
Yeah. As Basil said, there is no house and farm for me to test yet, and no Pyre to test.
No Pyre indeed.
But yeah, I mean, that's like I'm not necessarily feeling burnout. I know I'm feeling frustration on the tank side of things, but
yeah.
You know, again, that's part of testing. You're gonna feel frustration. Also feeling frustration on the caravan side of things.
Yeah.
I don't think we really have necessarily anything set out to talk specifically about caravans, but let me just at least toss out a quick opinion on that one. Is it hurts. I've had more caravans destroyed by bugs than anything, and then more caravans destroyed by other players than I've been able to turn in. So I've legitimately lost money. I would have made more money thus far just you know, selling glint at the merchant. Yeah. So
yeah, and I will say one of the days you were gone, I believe, which day was it? I think it came from Nyx. Let me just check. Intrepid did put out. Yes. So Nyx on the 19th said, calling all adventurers, our caravans have been spotted mysteriously teleporting across the realm of Vera. As we investigate these peculiar occurrences, we need your first-hand accounts to resolve this mystifying puzzle. Has your caravan been taking unexpected shortcuts through space and time? If so, please take a moment to provide details about this issue, and then left a thread. I think the thread is still open. Let me go double check that. Yeah, the thread is even still open now. So if you are struggling with your caravans, let me just copy this link and share it. They would really love to hear your thoughts. I want to go through and put my thoughts on there for sure, because when Lynette was trying to do our Care Bear Sunday of having a bunch of caravans, Vertec and I both lost our caravans to the... Well, mine was at least lost to the river. Yeah, like while I was trying to go from a raft back to a land caravan, it suddenly disappeared and like was way off the map where I couldn't even reach to recover it. And that essentially took me out of the game because I didn't really have very much gold, which is why I was doing it to replace said caravan and try it again. So I ultimately just decided like I was just done with that system, and I was just gonna leave it be until they could fix it. And yeah, so it was just a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'll be honest, just because I've lost so many, I mean, it's hard to test something and test the systems of the game when you don't have the money to buy stuff to go do stuff in order to continue testing. So yeah. I think I'm going to tap out of caravans for a while until a lot of that stuff gets ironed out, and I'll just be selling my glint. I'll come back to it down the line, because right now I don't think I've had more than 25 gold at any given point in the entire testing right now. Mm-hmm. Mainly just because I'll turn in a caravan and I'll get a big bump of gold, right? And then I'll take and go to try to run another caravan, and then that gets destroyed. And okay, so I got to buy all the new parts again, and I do that, and their caravan gets destroyed. Okay, so I got to buy new parts again. Okay, all that 25 gold is gone now. It's all gone. And then that one gets destroyed, and now I'm back down to nothing. So now I need to do everything I can to get, 10 gold in order to put together another caravan. and then now I have no gold for repairs, so now I got to go do more stuff. It's a never-ending cycle. So I think just to be able to test every other system, I'm gonna not do caravans. I'm apparently terrible at it.
Yeah, and Kinko, to go back to my point about like I think it's on us to not get burnt out, says that some people are just like, OMG, I'm so burnt out, must be Intrepid's fault for not working faster or adding content. And I mean, they're working at the pace that they said that they would be working at, which is, again, to reiterate, the updating patches as needed, you know, and then every 3 weeks are minor bug fixes and things like that. And then every 6 weeks are major updates. So I forgot exactly what week the desert came out. I feel like it was around 4 weeks ago. So I'm not expecting another big update until 2 more weeks from now, just as an example.
Yeah. And that's the thing also is like we're testing the stuff that Intrepid puts out, but Intrepid is also on their side probably testing out a lot of their workflows and like emergency response measures when it comes to how are they going to focus developer time on this versus that. Can they quickly summon everybody to battle stations to fix some critical bugs and then also still get other content out in a certain amount of time, etc. So they're probably doing a lot of fine tuning on their cadences.
And to go back to kind of something that you commented already too in the chat, CBet says, I think there needs to be more risk to attackers of caravans. Kinko says, I mean, caravans are going to be like that all day probably. Once they get attackers more risk, they're going to say it doesn't feel worth it to attack on a caravan, as they said a while ago. And then finding a balance is going to be really hard. And I agree. Hello, Lyat.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And cheers. I have just this black cup at the moment, but I'm still gonna cheers with it.
Yeah, and that's Cbet and Kenko. Yeah, that's gonna be the fun thing, is really finding that balance, because I know Steven has said previously that the main risk to attackers is going to be reputation, but as we can see on Vyra, sometimes that reputation is what guilds want. As we can see on Lyneth with a couple specific guilds, sometimes that is the reputation they want.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so that nobody else can run caravans. But the one thing they can do, and what they have already said they're working on, is creating more incentives for defenders to protect caravans that they don't personally know or own, or it's not one of their guildies or friends, just a passing caravan, giving them incentives for defending.
Yeah.
Like if they add more incentives for defenders, it might make it harder for attackers to win, because the benefit for attackers reduces per person the more you bring in to attack, right? Because you're looking for that payout of either there's two big benefits really. Either you're stopping the people running the caravan from making money, so you're holding them back, and that is the benefit for you. In which case, bring as many people as you want. You're just going to destroy the caravan and loot the contents, like pull out a crowbar and just yank it and run.
Yeah.
And if whatever you get is what you get. But the other benefit is if you're actually looking to make money, which was a driving force, especially early on for caravan raids, the more people you bring to guarantee a win, the less each person is getting in the end. Plus somebody has to put their caravan on the line, which could be built. I mean, it could be 100 gold caravan just to grab all the goods on the ground. And
Absolutely.
if that gets lost, then oops.
Or even with the upgraded options like what we have on Lyneth with a braidwood caravan, if you get a high enough quality braidwood caravan and then you lose that as well, oof, that's gonna cost a pretty penny. But again, you know, I think that it's important to express when we feel like something doesn't feel meaningful in terms of systems, right? And I think that part of that is doing a self-reflection. What about this doesn't feel meaningful? For me, being a defender, if I don't know your caravan, or if I don't think I'm going to get anything out of defending your caravan, I'm not as incentivized to help you defend it. Versus if I had that system built in, or like, you know, somebody else mentioned, and that things have happened often, which is just attack the caravan and then take over the goods, seal it. And if you make another caravan, then the process happens all over again. Now you've theoretically put no effort into getting those materials, so you're already at a net gain. And if you lose it, you lose it. You didn't have it to begin with, so it's whatever. Otherwise, if you crowbar it, not only do you degrade the value of the items, but you also have no risk anymore. You could leave with the items. I don't know if that goes into your materials tab, because I've never actually crowbarred anything.
Yeah, neither have I. Couldn't tell you.
But if it goes into your materials, I guess you're at risk for dying. But now you have to have... My frustration with that is if you crowbar it and you take those items, and now we're out of a caravan fight because the caravan died, which is how you crowbarred it, you have to flag in order for me to attack you. Otherwise, I could attack you, but I would get corruption for it. So I have no way of forcing that person to take the consequences of crowbarring outside of flagging, or they just get a lesser value of the item.
Yeah, so yeah, I think like my position on it in summary is just kind of like, yeah, it kind of sucks right now, but hopefully the adding of incentives for defenders will outweigh the additional incentives for attackers, and there will actually be more people wanting to defend, and the same people wanting to attack, and then it would actually kind of balance out numbers and whatnot, I think.
Yeah. Are you saying it does seem to be fair? It does not seem to be fair, because the second sentence there makes me think you're meaning not to be fair. Lyat says being an attacker does seem to maybe be fair. It does seem to far outweigh the benefit. Okay, sorry, I misread that as fair. That is my fault. The benefit to defender. Attackers get quick cash out of potential valuables, and defenders just get to sit and slow walk along with the caravan for a long period of time for low rewards with a high chance of getting PvP murdered. Very, 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 very good points. And so, I don't know. I kind of could see there being reasons to defend where if you have the defender status, you have like a heavier weight in the fight because you're defending, but I really don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if it's necessarily like our job to solve the problem, but it is important to highlight what you think could be a problem in, your thoughts on the problem, like what you think the problem is being caused by. That I think helps developers understand where you're coming from and address it in a meaningful way.
I think honestly it'd be pretty cool if being a defender and you get the defender tree working out, that you can end up getting, a little bit of a percentage of what the turn-in value of the caravan is once it's completed. But you have to make sure it gets completed, it gets to its end goal and turns in. And I guess depending on the total overall travel time, you get a certain amount of, money out of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I really love what Kinko said. It's a never-ending pendulum, and that's the balancing life of balancing MMOs and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I specifically refuse to join in on that, Oracle. I'll let that be your guys' game.
It's all right. Seabet's over there fighting dirty with a plunger.
So, I don't know what else you want to cover for this overall.
Like just in general, or like this topic we're looking at?
The State of the Ashes particular.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff we could cover for sure, but I think we kind of hit a lot of the big points. Because again, this is more of a broad strokes kind of discussion for the State of the Ashes. So yeah, we're not really getting into super detailed stuff because it's just the big ticket items people are really looking at.
Yeah, and overall, like, I don't hear too much in terms of fighting. I mean, obviously they're always going to try to rebalance the raids with Firebrand and with Tumok, but those are kind of more minute things. I think that gear dropping is at a pretty decent place in my opinion. It is very still confusing on when you get gear drops versus when you don't, going in with different groups. I've noticed sometimes I get more and sometimes I get less.
Yeah, there's even been the statement from Steven on exactly what impacts loot drops, and there's still people that swear that there's other components that factor in.
Yeah.
Like the size of your group definitely still impacts gear drops, but Steven basically said no, not really. There's a luck stat that gets averaged out between everybody. So in theory, if your larger group happens to bring in people with higher luck, then yeah.
One of those things where you just slowly start dropping people until you figure out who has the higher luck,
exactly,
and then you just
exactly.
rake in all the rewards.
That's our next raid week. We gotta dedicate a week to find the high luck characters.
Yeah.
And then the people with the really low luck. Sorry, we'll pay you to not come. Okay, we'll just make sure we get you a couple drops. How about that?
Oh my gosh. Another question from the community is, currently we have 5 slots. I believe the plan is to eventually have a total of 8 character slots.
I hope so. That's actually, that's actually a good one there, because I would really like to be able to try all the different archetypes on the same account on the same server, right? I know there's different views on that. Some people think the more alts you have, the more you can depend on yourself instead of other people. And while that can be true, I mean, you could do that on one character just by devoting more time to it, and then you have more things. But I mean, granted, you're not going to cover all the artisan professions, but you can do all the things with just one character, to a degree or another. But you still need, even if you have 8 alts and they all have Grandmaster something, like 2 Grandmaster somethings, and let's say you could cover every artisan skill, you still need to trust somebody to transfer goods from one to the next. So you still are depending on somebody else for something. Right.
And honestly, the OP for this thread on forum, or on Reddit, I mean, has the same opinion. They would like a character for every class if they could, because currently they can't play on their same server without it. And they're asking if anybody else has heard anything about it, but a lot of the other people are agreeing, like, yes please, would love to see that too. Hello project, welcome in.
Ahoy.
And there's also the obvious, like, rumors being spread about, like, rogues being delayed until March, etc. Which I have no idea. I forgot when exactly Steven said it was supposed to be coming out, but the testing is already happening, so they're at least on track with that, I will say.
Sorry, I was reading Kenko's comment there. What was that last thing you were saying?
The rumors about Rogue being delayed until March.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But I haven't really seen, and that was like 8 hours ago, because they said that there's not really been a marketing push to demo the Rogue. But I think it's because they're still getting our feedback from testing the Rogue before they demo it, so that they can make sure that everything's in good order.
Yeah. I mean, they said that they're still working a lot on, like, the visual effects and whatnot, which I could see. That delaying them even wanting to push it out until they get all those wrapped up. Do a little bit more balancing maybe, because I think we're able to kind of delete some people in a rotation of about 4 skills, which is kind of on par with the mage thing that I'm personally complaining about with tank.
Oh, about, like, just
being able to be deleted in 4 skills, so like 4 seconds and dead.
Yeah.
So
and now the other conversation is on mana management and, like, your opinion on it. I obviously don't know much about Lineage 2 or other games similar that Ashes is kind of being inspired by, but James Sunderland from the Reddit, or not the Reddit, wow, I'm getting these mixed up, the forums, posted this talking about how in Lineage 2 one of the harshest mana management systems in any MMORPG is that there were no mana potions, or mana costs were steep, and there were 2 essential classes almost completely dedicated to the management of mana of their party, and that every 9-man party would want at least one of them. I could see that in this example being Bard. What are your thoughts? I don't think that Intrepid needs to necessarily make it where it feels almost impossible to do anything without mana, meaning that like once you like run out of mana, you can't have a mana pot for it. But I would like to see a more meaningful mana thing where if you don't learn to manage your mana, then I could see you having problems.
Yeah, see, I've always been one that I like the idea of limited resources. Like, you have to actually plan your rotation, if you will, even if it's more priority system, it's all situational based, but we'll just call it rotation for simplicity. Like, your rotation, like the skills that you use need to have purpose to them.
Yeah.
And having an inbuilt way to recover mana within your own class, at least to a certain point, enough so that you can keep your really strong rotation going on your own without needing a bard. But if you have a bard to help you keep mana going, or if you have mana pots, then you can push harder. You can push the buttons harder to make more damage happen. But you're going to chew through a lot more mana, so you need that extra, external source of mana recovery. I like that idea, because for one, it's going to for sure encourage more group play, so you get that external free source of mana recovery from a bard.
Yeah.
Or maybe another class that can also help restore mana.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you need to depend on people doing crafting to get you some decent mana pots, because you'll only be able to buy some basic ones from a vendor. But if you get a player crafter to make some for you, you can get the stronger ones.
Honestly, okay, yes. Okay, that I like that too, because I was going to say maybe my hot take is that I would prefer if the vendor didn't sell mana pots, but the players did. Because why buy from a player when I can just buy it from the vendor? Why allow there to be any reason for a cook or a alchemist to make something if I could just null and void them by going to the vendor for that, like.
Well, see, I really like the idea with alchemy specifically in potions, right? I'd really like the idea of a vendor selling maybe mana pots that'll restore, say, 200 mana with our current mana pool of what, like 1,500 to 2,000, something like that, depending on what class you are or archetype. I don't know what mages have. You could have 20,000 for all I know, but based on a tank having something like 1,300 or 1,500 mana, I forget, I haven't paid attention. A mana pot you could buy from a vendor would give you like 100, let's say.
Okay.
And that's the basic appropriate tiered mana pot that an alchemist could make. But if you make an uncommon, it's 200. If you make a rare, it's going to be 300, something like that.
It's already like
just
that,
progressively bigger. And then the alchemist can also take the lower tiers that they maybe made just to level and distill them to make a higher rarity. So if
I kind of like that, because
like if an uncommon restores twice as much, you need 3 commons in order to make 1 uncommon. So you're actually burning more resources to make it happen, but you could still upgrade them.
I kind of like that because, again, commons are plentiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, one problem that I see, and maybe this isn't a problem, maybe this is intentional to cause player decision, right? But to me, I don't see where the decision is. In that regard, I am meaning the decision is kind of a no-brainer. So right now in alchemy and tailoring, you can bring an alchemist bluebell, or you could bring a tailor bluebell. The tailor who you brought bluebell to could make you high quality gear, which will give you better stats. The alchemist who you bring the bluebell to can make you a mana pot that will give you back a lot more mana than the typical lower quality mana pots are. I think one of them's no-brainer. I think you're going to probably be bringing the bluebells to the tailor, because people are always going to need better clothing. And yeah, they might want better mana pots, but I think that I think that like the lower quality ingredients are typically going to go to the alchemists or people who are learning to do better, like to level up their tailoring, for example. Otherwise, I think the better use of that is going to be bringing it to an alchemist.
Bimley can only make so many burgers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. In order to level up tailoring, I made at least 100 boots, and I had to have people help me because right now the inventory is like this, which when you're making alchemy stuff, it goes in your inventory, and my materials bag is like this. So I'm like, I can only hold so much of the materials, and I have to keep offloading it to like an alt or something to be able to still make more and level without just selling it off to a merchant. But let's touch base on what some of the things chat is saying. First off, going back to
I was just gonna say the same thing.
A dedicated mana manager sounds like something they'd avoid. Mana management would be something I'd expect to see if they were a player skill. I could see that from Leia. Maybe vendor pots are really crap, and I liked that idea that you suggested as well with that. Hi, Pockets. And Project said, is the reason stuff is at the vendor because they were worried about the production output of players? Like there wouldn't be enough player generated food to go around, and I don't think so. I think it's just to provide you with stuff while the players are trying to get of level 2 craft those things. So as soon as the alchemy table for apprentice level goes down, you have access to that stuff while you wait for the alchemist to be able to actually make it. I'm thinking that's what it's for. Keyboard Oracle says get rid of vendors unless they're supplied by players.
Yeah, another thing that would be nifty though is if they did implement the distilling portion of pretty much any crafting / processing, where you could combine more of the common to make an uncommon. That would actually give a good resource to alchemists to not have to go out and buy a bunch of flowers. Or go out and pick a bunch of flowers. They could buy some of the commons and distill them up to, legendary or what have you. No, not saying that's exactly something that Intrepid would want to happen, but
no,
just saying it would be a resource to the alchemist instead of being a detriment to the alchemist.
I could see it being where you could distill 3 commons and have the ability to proc up to uncommon with the capability of, depending on how high level you are, procking a second uncommon from those 3. Kinko says, I don't think vendors will last. I feel like they should be able to run out of stock and force player base to get into alchemy. And that goes beyond alchemy too, right? That goes into almost anything. I mean, you can get common bluebell, which is great. If you don't have all this stuff, you can get common bluebell from the vendors, but the better bluebell is bought from the player, the players themselves. But there's almost no need to do anything better than common for alchemy at the moment. I don't mind a vendor selling since you still have the option to go to a player for higher rarity pots and foods, says Oracle the White. And then Seabet responded saying, yeah, but it hurts low level leveling alchemist. And yeah, if you don't really need me, then I'm making all of this stuff for almost no reason, and I just give it out for free to people because nobody needs it because they're buying it from the vendor, essentially. Kinko says, just like in an anime, I saw one of those VR kind MMOs. They had vendors, but they would run out of the pots. The main character was forced into alchemy to fill the need of the town, and I like that. And then we have Pockets Art who's calling Vertek cute.
No. Your face cute though.
But Layat says that, low level crafters generally don't earn much off of their end production products in most MMOs either way. I just wish that maybe like if you crafted something, maybe you would get more money out of it, because it like if a skin for an otter is like throwing out a number out there, 1 gold for a rare because it's so hard to get, and then I sell that and it gave me 10 silver, I'm gonna cry. And that was probably like maybe for a common or a green, so like it feels bad, but nobody wants it unless you're making high quality items with it. So it's like, I don't know what to do with that. But
Yeah.
Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think my thoughts on low level crafters generally don't earn much on their end production products, like Lyat was saying, is a true thing. I think, and I could be wrong in my interpretation because of how Steven is approaching crafting and artisans in general. I think that's supposed to be changing in their grand design ideas.
Yes. Yes.
Because he has said that they're putting forth effort to make sure that all materials are going to be useful throughout the life of a crafting process, like an artisan process. So I think it's going to be something along the lines of, those dandelions and snowdrops are going to be made into certain other things that are then going to be incorporated into other stuff that is needed for, level 50 crafting.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be needed. Just the level 50 crafter trying to make a piece of equipment doesn't necessarily see that those pieces are being collected. They know that if they look at the tree all the way down from the level 50 stuff, trickle down to all the little bits and pieces and bobs along the way, they would find eventually there's 10 of the super common level 1 gatherables being picked up in order to make their ultimate armor at level 50.
Yeah. And to your point, and this is the part that I'm excited for, so I wanted to explain a frustration point of crafting system at the moment. But to your point, the thing is, it's not even done yet. There's a lot of adjustments coming up. I'm super excited for. There's specializations within each crafting system that you're going to be able to do. And CVAC kind of touches on a point that I kind of like the idea of, which is making more items that are used later, like blacksmith making nails for caravans or horses, or horseshoes for mount speed and so on. And right now, alchemists can make magic powder, which is always going to be used, but it's your novice item.
So if a blacksmith could make horseshoes for mount speed, what if you're not riding a horse? Is he gonna you gonna go to the leather worker for bear shoes? Because that'd be pretty cool. Just saying.
But I think that there's going to be more to the system than we currently see. I think I'm pretty sure Steven has mentioned that it's a very basic state at the moment. And I mean, it's already pretty incredible with the current state that it's in. I feel like there's already a lot of depth and intermingling of the crafting within the current state. Seeing how they develop on this further intrigues me, and that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. Hopefully in 2025, I think that's one of the things that they're hoping to do this year before they finish up Alpha 2. But yeah, that's one thing that I could totally see being better. Emery boards.
Emery boards to file the bear claws. I like it. And Lyat said, you're correct. There's no real situation where a level 1 alchemist's mana and health potions are going to be very valuable against a grandmaster's. Much like a level 1 brass crap dagger isn't going to bring a weaponsmith any money versus a super mithril doom sword of plus 10 pirate slaying. That's the case. That's true. But the components that were used to make the mana and health potions for a level 1 alchemist could have been used to make, some other form of powders or liquids or other mixture that could then be incorporated into the Grandmaster's potion. So it's the base materials and, the alchemist across their entire spectrum of capabilities would make components with those starter level 1 materials, level 10, level 20, 30, 40, in order to make that level 50 thing.
Yeah. And to kind of bring it back to the original topic, which was on mana management and how there are a couple of select players or classes that would be able to help with that. A part of the big question is, now that we have ideas and sneak peeks into how Rogue is going to function, either it be from Vertec and I or others talking about our experience with Rogue, or the metadata that was mined for Rogue ahead of time, I think that a lot of people are actually going to see you guys are distracting me. I'm sorry. What materials?
I'm just saying you can gather many of them out in the wild.
What materials are used for the plus 10 pirate slaying? Enchanting scrolls, clearly. Wow. I will say that's the one thing there, like, just to backtrack real quick, sorry. Enchanting scrolls, when you get to the journeyman, aren't sold by the journeyman vendor. They are sold by the node vendor. So it's one of those things where if we could have a situation where the scribe could make journeyman enchantment scrolls, I could then see more of that stuff being, geared towards player purchases. Over thank you, Laya. Over like the node seller vendor person. But the big question that a lot of people have, and this is kind of looking forward at 2025 of how Intrepid is going to handle things, are we have an idea of how Rogue is going to be, but how will Summoner be? And we know that Summoner will be able to play a variety of roles depending on which summon they're utilizing, coupled with their choice of secondary archetype. So while a Bard primary may be able to help sustain mana, a Summoner Bard could have a summon that also helps with sustaining mana, making it less needed to have mana pots.
There's a bunch of different ways a lot of this stuff could end up going.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, even to circle back just a tiny bit to the vendor conversation, what if vendors still existed, but they sold a less quality product? Like the very base version of a health potion an alchemist can make is like 100 health, but the vendor will sell one that does 75 health. So there's still a need for player. Well, yeah, but
suggesting earlier.
Kind of, sort of. I was suggesting the vendors can still sell that base component, but the alchemist would be able to distill them into, you know, an uncommon. That way they can still have use for offloading their basic ones, or just distilling them, make it a better product and sell it for more. So they can still craft the basic ones, the common, just to level up, get that experience, that common burn through common gatherables, just to do something to get experience to level your craft. And then you take those and distill them to further level your craft, but you get a better item in the end.
Yeah. Kinka says that's why I feel those vendors should just disappear after their stock runs out. So even you have really good alchemists selling max level pots, you would be able to sell two as a low level alchemist for low levels. If you have vendors selling low level pots, low level alchemists don't have any chance to be selling if they're not max level alchemists. And I mean, I can kind of see that. I think it really depends on tiers. I could totally see here's the thing with your, we're very focused on the alchemy thing here, but your very low level alchemist, your level 1 to 10, right? As a novice, you can only make these salves, which are not the same as pots, but they actually are pretty good, especially for doing content with that. But as a apprentice for level 11, 10, 11, and to 20, you can make actual like health pots and mana pots, you know? And I think that one thing I noticed is you can sell these salves at a lower rate, but I feel like you can also buy them pretty easily from a vendor. The lower level stuff. Granted, I think it takes having an actual apprentice laboratory to be able to buy them, but you can. So for this period of time between level 1 and 10, and even 20, if the node isn't fully built up yet, you're seeing more people probably buying from the vendor rather than the player. I think it's all about time, you know, and making sure you get the ingredients in a timely manner to sell them to your fellow friend. However, you must be level 10 to list anything on the market.
Yeah. And Isaiah's, do they have cooking in the game? Yes, they do. Right now it's in a weird spot also. It's just not profitable.
It's mainly due to the economy and not anything that Intrepid did. It's player-based economy.
Yeah,
So
it's really not profitable. I mean, people are selling it, selling, say, a food. Let's just take roasted chicken as an example, because it's just a straight power boost to your casting. You get 49 spell power off of one roasted chicken, but that roasted chicken takes mostly components that you buy from a vendor, and it has I forget if it's 7 or 8 different processing steps. And then it takes 2 flowers that you got to grab from the wild. It takes a dandelion and a snowdrop. Or not dandelion, daffodil, the other yellow one. So it takes one daffodil and 1 snowdrop. Those are the only things you can gather or contribute in some way that's not literally just paying money to a vendor or for processing fees. Without the cost of those 2 flowers, taking those out of the equation, it costs, I think it's 7 silver and like 60 or 70 copper. I forget what calculation I came up to, but it's something around there with a 10% tax in the city. It costs more if there's a higher tax on stuff, right? But then, so that's almost 8 silver just to make the food. But then you got to count the 2 flowers. If you're buying the flowers, the current market price is somewhere around like 40 to 50 copper each. So you're looking at a whole other silver added on just to buy those 2. If you go do it yourself, you're going to take... Oh, Chibi, you do a whole lot of herbing. If you were to be in town and run out and you wanted to grab 2 flowers and then come back to town, how long would that take you?
It depends on the flower.
1 daffodil and 1 snowdrop.
If it's a daffodil and snowdrop, those are pretty plentiful. I know where to get them. So maybe 5 to 10 minutes at most. Time to travel being the longest.
Okay, so time to travel, yeah, probably the longest thing there. So let's say that's another 5 minutes of your time to go out and grab 1 of each flower. Now, say you wanted to make 200 food. That'd be a whole lot of flowers you got to go grab on top of all that. So with all that, so it's another 8 minutes worth of processing individual steps. So you're not going to be sitting there for 1 minute for every one of those. If you are, you're wasting more time than just that. But in the end, like, it's going to take at least 7 silver, 60 copper, and 5 minutes of your time to go grab stuff, and another 5 minutes or so to reprocess everything. Outside the fact that each processing step takes a minute as well. So it's about 20 minutes of your time, 25 minutes of your time-ish. 20 to 25 minutes of your time, plus all that money. And people are selling things at 8 silver and 80 copper each. That's like the going rate for that food. It's literally, they're not making any money on it. They're selling 25 minutes of their time for like 20 copper. They may as well just sell the flowers and make more money per time invested. It takes you 5 minutes to gather 2 of those. Yeah. So it's financially, it's just not worth it. It just doesn't make sense to do cooking. Just buy it from people who are undercutting themselves.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm sorry. I got a little distracted. I was listening to you while you were talking, but Keyboard Oracle said make every freehold an in-game shop where people sell what they make and buy whatever. So the original purpose of player stalls was not to necessarily just go to the marketplace and list your stuff up there. The intent was to rent a location, a stall that you could put up somewhere, right? This is enhanced by having an economic node, where if your economic node is leveled up to a certain amount, you're able to then place them anywhere within the node, I believe, not just within the city. And so the Wiki says player stalls, also called kiosks, and rental stalls are rentable locations near the unique building in an economic node. In marketplaces, the constructible building available for placement by mayors of any town stage 4 node or higher. So technically we have them in stage 3 in the village node when they're not supposed to be available until the town phase. Or as business buildings on freehold plots, aka being able to pop down on a freehold like the tavern, a business building to be able to buy wares. And I think once that comes into being considered, because right now, let's look at how it is currently, right? Any market is segregated from all the other markets. So if you go to Mirla, that market's going to be different than if you go to Halcyon or to Asmoran, right? Now, if you add on to that it's not until you get to level 4, stage 4 towns, that means that you are relying on people having their shops and things like that up in these various locations when they can rent them or put them up on a freehold, for example, until we hit stage 4. So I think that part of it is you have these apprentice vendors who sell these things because otherwise you can't really get access to them from the other players outside of trade chat, for example. But I don't know, I just thought that was really, really interesting because I like being able to have your movable rental stall, player stall, because then you can dictate price. Because if I pop up, let's say Mirleth is economic. If I pop up right outside of Carfin, I can be like, hi, need a pot? Here's some pots. You don't have to run all the way back to Mirleth. You can buy it right here, and I'm saving you a bunch of time, and I can dictate my price because I'm right there with my health pots, my mana pots. I realize I just said pot, but like, I mean in-game pots, whatever kind of thing that is, strength, etc. Yeah, I think that having the variety of options that you can pop up in key locations is very helpful. Cyclops says, I'm hoping Translog will be around soon. Yes, same.
Yeah.
And Isaiah, like a lot of the recovery though is just sitting down, using the X key to sit down while you eat, or just sit down in general. That recovers a lot faster too.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff out there that exists for recovery right now, between healing received, there's HP regeneration, mana regeneration. There's even some decent combinations where the rancher's pasta, you can make a pasta for ranchers that gives you animal husbandry, I think it is, rarity increase plus mana regeneration. So you could be just running around doing things with mana regeneration, and every time you have an animal that finishes cooking, and you go and you pick that up off the animal husbandry table and drop a new one in there and continue about your adventuring with your mana regeneration still going, and you get a little bit of both.
I want to touch back on chat. Lyat says, no matter what, you're going to need a vendor selling the absolute baseline. Could you imagine spawning in as a level 1 fresh face and having to deal with a guild running a racket where they buy up all of the newbie gear to force the vendors to despawn and then sell level 1 gear for massive amounts of upscaling? Absolutely great point, because people are going to do that. And somebody responds to Kinko says, that's how it should be. If a guild wants to do that, they will be impacting negatively their node economy. So they will get focused by the node and the people who live there. It's like corruption that you can do. It doesn't mean you should do it. It boosts player interaction. And I think part of it is, if they're trying to outdo the market by selling these baseline items, despawning the vendor and selling them for ridiculously high prices, more people will probably step up to sell their goods for cheap. Maybe a little bit more expensive than what the vendor would have sold it for, but cheaper than what other people are trying to sell it for.
Yeah.
And Lyat says, how do you propose to find out who's buying all that vendor material? I guess you could see who's listing it, but also Kinko says Node Mayor should get records on that stuff, which I think that's also a really cool idea. Sitsuma says, keep in mind there are a number of factors that'll make higher level consumables more rare. Currently, they're also making level 10 or 20 consumables, and we don't have the node leveling restriction. So every node has a town. For level 50 white vendor consumables, you will need a Grand Master building in the metropolis, which will be one per the entire region, which I had no idea about. And if that's something that they mentioned previously, that's good to know. I forgot about that. And Sitsuma goes on to say it'll incentivize people to make level 40 food in the metropolis and then take it 3 nodes away and sell it for profit because the vendor isn't there. I forgot that was even a thing, honestly.
Yep. And that I like. And that's also why I don't have an issue with vendors selling like the base version of items, or even something that's like 75% effectiveness of the base one that a crafter can make.
Yeah.
Just that there's something there. I just want to stop in town. I want to grab something that does exist just to help out while I'm out there in the world and just go accomplish something instead of like, okay, I guess I got to go to town. Let me search all the players' stalls. Oh, look, nobody's selling any of them. Let me look at all of the auction house. Oh, nobody's selling any. Great. I have nothing. I have no health pot is the example that's been used so far. Like I don't have any health potions now and I kind of need them to go out and do anything in the world. Let me go to the next node. And that's just a bother. That goes right back to the, in my opinion, again, that rule of cool. Like it's still a game. It's still a game.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to play a game. You want to be able to enjoy a game. You want to have fun in a game. And going around and being forced to absolutely, you must buy from a player who may or may not have crafted something in the past X amount of time that nobody else has bought. That's a feels bad moment. If I can at least get a reduced effectiveness item from a vendor just to fill the blank for now while I still search around for buying a giant stack of them from a player, then I'd much rather prefer that.
Yeah, I agree. And then Oracle is like, what do you mean by region? Obviously, in Ash's creation, there's only going to be 5 metropolises and 5 castles. So once we actually start seeing these vassal systems being in place via level 4 nodes, level 5 nodes, etc., that's what we're referring to as regions, right? The vassalized region of that metropolis, because it will begin to expand out further for the point of interest. Vassals, yes, thank you. No, it's all good. It's all good. And you know, that's an important thing, because like a primary example of that, without even seeing the vassalization system in, is Miraleth currently on Lyneth only has a apprentice laboratory in Miraleth. Nowhere else, pretty sure, nowhere else on the server is there an apprentice laboratory. What that means is you can grab pots and scribe stuff, etc., from that laboratory and go off into the distance of Halcyon, of Asmoran, of Sunhaven, and sell pots there, because the only place to buy them is from Miraleth. And that allows people to, you know, be able to have access to those from faraway locations. And I think that's a primary example of what that would look like in the future when we have this metropolis node. But yeah.
And yeah, I don't think she got that package. I think that was like that was something like the $7,500 or $10,000 pack where you can help design the castles and such.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because I know
even beyond us.
Yeah, we got the Phoenix Initiative pack, and that one doesn't even include being able to help design a house for the freehold.
I think we get to help with an NPC or like a statue.
We get to help with an in-game event. Help design an in-game event, something, you know, like Children's Week and that type of thing that like WoW has. Nothing huge and crazy, but just something that just exists to do in the game.
You were gonna say Children of the Cord for a second.
Children of the Cord. Oh, I'd so love if we could actually get that to happen. But I know one of our pipe dreams and wishes is to save up enough money to upgrade our pack to be able to get the ability to help design a freehold house, like a freehold building. That way we could actually make a tavern, like make the Golden Feather Tavern that we could have inside the game.
Yeah,
that would be huge. We would absolutely love that. That's our dream. But even our package with the Phoenix Initiative doesn't get to that point, let alone designing a castle.
Yeah, it's okay though. One can dream. But yeah, exactly. So Susuma, to my point, is, you know, New Ayla is the caravan parts place on Vyra. There's already people buying vendor parts in New Ayla, then taking them to Miraleth to sell them for a profit. Easy money. Yeah, absolutely.
See, Tsuma, so ours is Winstead, and there's people that are taking caravan parts that they buy on the vendor in Winstead and selling them on the auction house in Winstead for more money and making money. Some people just don't know that the vendor exists or where to find it, so they go to the auction house because they know that's like the carpentry area too. So they go there to look for parts on the auction house first, and they buy whatever the cost is there.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot to say that's valid for I mean, think about it like this, right? If you think about real life and how convenience stores are overtly expensive compared to going to non-convenience, stores, that's kind of the same principle here, right? You could spend the time and effort going all the way to Marileth, but because I brought it to you in Halcyon, there's a convenience fee because I took the trip, so now it's more expensive. So you don't have to take the trip.
Yeah.
That being said, there's also the other way to go about market placement is putting items in certain markets that you think is best for that market. So for example, ink in Marileth for scribes, threads and stuff in Azmoran for tailors, flowers and such in New Ayla for weavers, right? So thinking about like what the primary point of that node is, and then selling things there that those people might need or want without having to go out and go search for it themselves. That's another tactical plan.
Yeah. And by the way, over on YouTube, is the name Project Edenable, like to be able to make something into Eden, or is it Projected Enable?
Yeah, I was curious about that too, which is why I just referred to just project as project.
I just spelled the whole thing out. I was gonna put it all out there.
But yeah, there's a lot. Zara got royalty, so design event. Yeah, basically. So excited for Vassal system to come in, and then also for Node Siege mechanics to be in. My guild loved most of the recent PTR Node Sieges changes. Yeah, same. And one of my favorites was the visual changes, because I love nothing more than visually seeing a item that's like being attacked over time, right? So as a DM, I often express when a creature starts bleeding out more, or when a door is looking pretty damaged, things like that. I love these visual cues because that helps the player kind of look at just a glance to understand if that's something that's worth engaging in or not worth engaging in. Mm-hmm. If Firebrand doesn't look all that damaged, they probably just recently started the fight. You could probably take over whatever percentage of damage that they've done and out DPS them. However, if Firebrand's looking majorly damaged or injured, you're likely not going to win a DPS race against the people that have already been there.
Well,
so
that's
things
even,
like that.
Like, take that to an extra step with the time to kill we were talking about earlier. Someone else brought up a good point. Like, you could roll in on another group fighting a Firebrand and just take out their tanks.
Yeah.
Don't attack Firebrand at all, and then let Firebrand destroy the rest of their raid, and then there you go. The Firebrand is yours now.
I mean, that's a tactical approach. But yeah, I think a lot will change with the Vassal system, like you said, Tsutsuma. And I think a lot of the things that people need to remember, including ourselves, I think we have to remind ourselves this too sometimes. Like, yes, jokes aside, yes, it's an alpha. There's a lot of things that are coming to change, but there's a lot of things that are in right now that are not in the way that they're supposed to be in the future. Yeah. Meaning that, sure, right now, all of the desert is unlocked at stage 4 or 3. I mean, but in the future, that's not going to open up those pocket dungeons until you get them to stage 3. Meanwhile, we were just given them because we were already stage 3, right? So don't interrupt the enemy when it's making a mistake.
Yep. That
exactly.
Right there.
But I think that there's a lot of really cool things I'm looking forward to 2025. Vertec, do you have anything that you would really like to see Ashes implement besides tank updates? And that's an easy one for you.
Because you know that's going to be on the top of my list.
Yep,
top of my list. I want my tank to feel like a tank. Daggone it. I want to be able to jump in, because I already know I'm doing crap damage. I want to be able to last forever. I want to be able to live. But top thing for 2025 outside of tank updates. That's tough. I think probably the secondary archetype is the one thing I'm looking forward to the most, really. Like, that's secondary archetypes, I can really see what that flavor change looks like and feels like.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I completely missed Tsutsuma saying I would love to if they got rid of visual health bars for all NPC mobs and added like missing armor pieces, bleeding, missing body parts, etc. for visual updates. I like that idea. Deep sea fishing is what I want, of course, with Snuggles. We gotta see that deep sea fishing. It's not a day in Vera without some sort of deep sea creature eating your ship alive while you're trying to do fishing. But all in all, jokes aside, I'm really excited to see the deep sea content. I think, as excited as I am for the desert nodes, I'm super anticipating these crafting changes and seeing how that affects the whole entire thing. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff with the vassalization system, and I can't wait to see how that actually ends up playing out, because again, a lot of these are in just to test. They're not even in the way that they're intended on being in, and I can't wait to see. It's like watching somebody who's halfway through a painting and thinking that because it looks so good already that they're done almost, when in reality they're actually halfway through and there's still much more for them to elaborate on and to define and make it pop even that much more, and I'm super excited for that. But I think we are very interested in hearing what you guys are looking forward to, be it in chat or in the comments. For those of you watching this on YouTube later, would love to hear your thoughts and your feedback on, you know, what is one thing that you think that Intrepid needs to work on, and what is one thing that you're super looking forward to 2025, because I don't really know the full breadth of like when they're going to come out with stuff. They have their roadmap for phase 2 and 3, but I think that a lot of really, really good stuff is coming our way, and I can't wait to see it develop further. And I hear there's somebody who might like Mead as much as we do, who's live, who we haven't visited in a while. And if you guys want Ashes of Creation video game content, he is currently streaming. So I'm going to prep this raid over to Thogli. And
it looks like he did just start an ad break though, so
yeah, it's like at 30 seconds, so we could go through our little ending spiel here. I think we'll be good.
Yeah, right over as soon as the ad break finishes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any last words, GB?
Now I see how daunting that sounds. I have some stuff that we are working on in the background, and for those of you that are subscribers, you might be seeing more of that in sneak peeks coming soon. But aside for our overall thoughts, I think I pretty much summed up my thoughts already. Fair enough.
And Kenko, Summoner and Summoner in both questions. And for every other question, the answer is Summoner and Pyre.
I love it.
All right, well, thank you everybody for stopping on by. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for entering in the conversation with us. We absolutely, truly love whenever any of you folks chat with us. That's one of our biggest goals ever, right? To be able to actually talk with people in the community. So it means the world to us. You spent your time here. We cannot give refunds, even if we wanted to. So thank you for spending your most valuable currency with us here at the tavern. And were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, if you want to, feel free to join our Discord. There's the link. We're looking to get more interaction happening within the Discord, especially if you're a patron of the tavern. So.
See. And yeah, everybody, if you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Drop a comment on our videos. It helps a whole lot. If you don't like this content just yet, please stop on by before deciding to hit like, subscribe, and all that.
Yeah.
Give us another chance.
Check us out.
We'll win you over eventually, I'm sure. All right, everybody, take care. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.